All right. Tagging back on from where we left off at, Mr. Elizondo. We talked about him, about how in his book he has a lot of interesting information, but it kind of ends on him saying that, which I didn't mention this before, but I was talking more about how he's picturing this as a threat to us. He said if he had to guess what they were doing, it would look like they're surveying us, like they're scouting out a battlefield, basically, getting ready to attack us. And that is the part that raised a red flag with me, saying, is this some sort of controlled disclosure, but controlled disclosure in a way that benefits whoever's running these special access programs? But moving on from there, now we have David Fravor, which I think you know about him. He was the commander, pilot that saw this Tic Tac and chased it for a bit and interacted with it for a bit and was pretty shocked and has a pretty shocking story. I mean, I would love to see a UFO that close, and especially one moving around you and maneuvering around you while you're flying. That'd be dope as hell. I'd say that was pretty cool. But he agreed to testify to Congress about his experience. Also, he had that New York Times article mentioned him, I think. He's been interviewed a lot about his experience, and I feel like he's pretty honest. I don't feel like there's any ulterior motive in his. He just is somebody telling what he saw, and that's all he could do. He doesn't even really share his personal opinions on UFO theories or anything.
So let me go ahead and add something here on this guy, though, because I like David Fravor and I like Ryan Graves, and I think that they're both stand-up guys. I think that they 100% would tell the truth and believe what they say and saw what they saw. And I'll tell you, it seems like you feel that way about them too. But here's the deal, though. And I love Tim Burchett, and I love where he's going with disclosure. I like it. But whenever they had when they had the hearings in Congress and they testified and they had Grush there, Tim decided that he wanted Congress to take it seriously. And Grush is making some pretty big claims, man. I mean, they're a little bit out there. They're way out there. So to help with the credibility and for Congress and the people in the hearing to make it more credible or to take it more seriously, he put David Fravor up there and Ryan Graves. And David Fravor, if I remember correctly, was a Top Gun pilot instructor. So I mean, this guy is the best of the best. And to be fair with you, having been in combat situations and stuff like that, I can tell you, you have to be very what's the word I'm looking for? Brave, courageous. You have to have nerves of steel. And you got to think like I've never been in a situation where he's been in, where you're flying this aircraft that takes great precision. He's obviously very skilled. Then he comes across something like what he saw, and he's got to keep it together, man. I mean, and he does. So this guy is the best of the best. And you put him and you put Ryan Graves up there too, another one of our best pilots, and you got the two of them together, and you got Grush sitting in the middle, and they're there for the not just to disclose what they've said, but another purpose is to make his statements be taken more seriously, to make Grush be taken more seriously. And it does lend, and I don't believe in conspiracy theories and things like that. I'm a pretty skeptical dude, but this guy, you put this guy up there with somebody, and it makes his claims the other guy's claims get taken more seriously. It does lend itself to some untrustworthiness that could be there somewhere, in that scheme.
Yeah, I think that brings an interesting point. How I have Graves in the next slide, but both of them, you're right. Their claims are only that UFOs exist and I saw one. They tried to fly around me and maneuver around me. That's all they're saying. That yes, they're real. There's these things and they move really fast and they can do this and this. But Grush's claims go way down, further down the UFO rabbit hole, saying, no, we have reverse engineered craft and biologics and stuff. So Grush doesn't have anybody else who's really backing up his whole claim. Maybe Elizondo does in a sense, I guess, but
I don't think those two collaborate. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that I haven't heard either of them to talk about the other one.
I feel like the feeling I get from Fravor is he doesn't want to go down the UFO rabbit hole. He doesn't want to get rid of it. It's like, oh, it's the lizard people. It's the fucking lizard people. He doesn't. He wants to be not associated with any of those people whatsoever. He doesn't want to. He's not going to be one of these guys that you're going to see him at UFO conventions selling his book. He doesn't want to be at the UFO convention, period. He said, no, you guys are too crazy for me. I don't want anything to do with that mess. And don't accept me as part of your group, even though I saw one and you guys haven't.
Yeah.
But
from what I get out of David Fravor, honestly, to be completely fair with you, he's the kind of guy that I feel like I would follow into battle because he's going to stick to the facts.
I agree.
He's going to stick straight to the point. He's, there's no BS there. This guy
really trustworthy and really dependable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he's gonna do. You're gonna get cut and dry, and that's it. And he saw what he saw, and that's it. He
doesn't speculate at all.
He doesn't speculate at all. Yeah, I'm sure he has his own opinions, and he's probably had to process this stuff over the years. But he don't let it get to him. He's cold as ice, in my opinion, and I like him.
I don't think he went out and ran to the bookstore and bought up a bunch of UFO books after he saw it. He don't want the UFO books at his house.
No.
Right.
But I don't know. I trust him, and I do trust Ryan Graves. So I think that
I trust him more too because I don't feel like they're trying to push all this extra information onto us. The information is simply, I saw UFO and they exist. This is how they fly.
And this is what it did. And that was it.
Yeah.
He's not trying to muddy the waters.
And they even have data that backs. I'm sure their craft take data. They got video of it. They got FLIR and stuff. So he's not. He's just saying, this is what I saw. Here it's on the cameras. I'm not going to tell you it was lizard people. I'm not going to say there's craft engineering program or anything. I don't know what the hell this was. It's just, this is what I saw. Plain simple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And these dudes are the best of the best.
Right. They're the best trained observers in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Same thing. And I love
be able
this
to spot something going in a speeding jet that fast. The slightest mistake could cost your life easily. So I wouldn't even want to attempt it. I'd be scared to fly a jet if I had to.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Some people are built for it, though, and these two dudes are the ones that
seems overwhelming.
They're built for it. Yeah, they're built for it. And when they go up there and they tell you that they see something and they say it's 40 foot long, by God, it's 40 foot long. You know what I mean? Yeah. It looks like a Tic Tac.
Yeah, they're trained, and they could spot a Russian MiG coming in. They got to be able to and decipher what it is too. They have to know all the all different types of aircraft.
If it's a threat, what kind of weapons it has, what kind of speed it's making, speeds that we're not used to witnessing. I can tell you how fast a car is going down the interstate, but I ain't going to tell you how fast the plane's flying. They will.
Right. I feel like they would have to know the technical details of every single craft to know, okay, this is how fast this one flies and shoots. And even though I think their craft are probably far superior, but they'd have to know what kind of threat it poses to them, if it was to decide to attack them.
Yeah, they have, their data is reliable.
Yeah, right. So and that's another thing that kind of how they just hid these craft retrieval programs, or at least how Elizondo did it as his work, is they used the cover story of it's a adversarial craft or not, a foreign craft of any type that we're just collecting for intel because we need to know all the different types of craft they're out in our space and what threat they, if any, they pose to us. And so UFOs could be included into that category. It's a foreign craft, so if it happens to be there, we're going to take it and include it in what we're doing here.
This would be crazy if it ever ended up in a book like Jane's. Like for the military, we have for the Navy, we have Jane's fighting ships. It tells you every kind of ship that we know of in the world, and all its capabilities and all that stuff. Imagine that for airplanes, but then you got UFOs in it.
Oh, yeah. Boy, I got a story for you. So, in a 1990s Air Force manual, which I shared this, I will find it and I'll show it to you, has aliens in it. I'm not kidding. It says these are the aliens and these are the different types of aliens that you might encounter and what to do, I think, too. It's pretty bizarre. And this is an Air Force officer training manual. And actually,
what's crazy about that? Yeah, what's crazy about that kind of stuff is that, like, right, okay, if that is real or if it is genuine, who would have it? Who would have access to that? Which officers would have access to that? And how many of them would have access to it? And then how many of them are going to keep their mouth shut about it? I mean, I'm just saying.
I don't see it now, but I sent it to one of my friends I was growing up with. Oh, wait, I will find it. I'm not making this up. I'm not crazy.
The friend that you grew up with was a CIA plant waiting on you to send that to him so that he could stash it away and it never be seen again.
He was my neighbor when I grew up, and he is a Space Force officer now.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Oh. Well, we don't need to see it necessarily right now, but I will show it to you to prove what I was saying is genuine. But there is an Air Force manual out there that lists the different types of aliens. It even lists one that's like hairy, like Chewbacca.
Huh. That's kind of weird, too.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Could be Bigfoot. Maybe Bigfoot is an alien.
Could be a Squatch.
Yep. That's very true.
Yes. Or it could be a species of Earthling that has evolved on Earth and surpassed us, kind of like how we observe apes. Maybe there are apes observing us.
That's what my theory about Bigfoot is that so if aliens altered our genetics, which is part of this ufology mythos, maybe Bigfoot is the predecessor humans that didn't get the new gene that made us, because it doesn't make sense. Why would we lose all our hair? That's not a good really adaptation to your environment, unless you live in the most tropical place on Earth, then it's not going to help.
Actually, that would be better to have hair in the most tropical place on Earth because it would hold your sweat to your body longer and allow you to not get burnt as well. So
I feel like that's it. I'm going to read a book about how there's a guy that explains how our genetics were altered and how there's proof in just who we are. Like we get a lot of sicknesses. We get a lot of cancers now. We get a lot of illnesses that a normal mammal wouldn't get. We are not really particularly suited for our environment that well. But my theory is Bigfoot is the humans that did get adapted to their environment. They were the ones that if we never got this alien gene, we'd look like Bigfoots and we'd be all just a big tribe of Bigfoots.
So let me give this this is gonna. It's weird. It's weird to say this, especially as a Christian. I believe in God and I believe in Christianity and all that stuff. And it's okay to do that and to also be curious and explore science and things like that, like aliens and stuff. But if you look back at the Bible and you look at Genesis and stuff, there are things apocrypha that is out there as well that has the story of Adam and Eve from Eve's perspective that I watched something on the other day. But it's written in a way that we can understand, and there's a whole big theme kind of throughout the Bible is that there's a lot of things we don't understand, and we're not supposed to lean into our own understanding on things, and that's okay too. I mean, it's okay to say that there are things that are unexplained. There are always going to be things that are unexplained, and we're curious to know. But it looks like, according to this particular book of Apocrypha, that in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve had traditional roles, and Adam was in charge of the male animals in the garden, and Eve was in charge of the female animals in the garden. Then they went and committed the sin of eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So when you look at it from that perspective, there are a lot of scientific things you could relate. Laboratories, a garden. They walked out and then they were on the earth. That who's to say that that they weren't created, and lived in the garden, and then they made that mistake of eating this, from this fruit, from this tree, and then got kicked out, and they were never originally, and this is going against evolution, because you look at monkeys and apes and things like that, like us. I am no expert on it. However, I can't grab on to the limb of a tree or a branch or a vine with my feet. Many of them seem to have opposing thumbs on their feet.
Way weaker than primates. They're all way stronger than us.
But I mean, also to the benefit of evolution, our intelligence and ability to make tools and critical thinking skills and things like that also are what allow us to live in a place like this. We live in places that humans should not ever live. We live in Canada, Alaska. We have people in Antarctica. We have people in just regular old Russia, making clothing and things like that. And I was watching Joe Rogan one day, and he said that chimpanzees are being said to have entered the Stone Age using using spears and tools and things like that. So there's a lot to unpack there that people just need to be really open-minded about, because evolution can explain things. Genetic altering could explain things, but just being created simply different than everything else is also an option. So there's a lot there to explore. Sorry, really went off the deep end.
No, I like that you brought up Genesis, because it's one of my favorite things in the Bible to talk about, because it breezes over, I feel like, thousands of years, and like over just spans of over phrases, but it says some really bizarre stuff. I was going to say in the lizard people prophecy, they say that the eating of the fruit given to them by the serpent is a euphemism for being genetically altered by the lizard man. And whether I believe that or not, I don't know. I think we don't know, because there's a lot you could speculate on Genesis. Like, there was giants, there was gods mating with humans,
Nephilim, all that.
Nephilim, all this crazy stuff that we have no idea to picture what that would look like, and even what
it may be important. Really, it's important because it's existed for so long. Like, it's one of the things, the Bible and stuff are one of the things that has constantly been under attack for not just centuries, thousands of years, has been under attack from people mostly, to try to get rid of, to eradicate, and it's been there the whole time, and it hasn't gone anywhere, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason it's important. There's a reason we keep hold of it. Well, we may not even know the reason why it's important or why we keep hold of it, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to know. We don't have to know.
I was going to bring up, like, so man was created from earth. Like, we don't know what that means or what that literally looks like, or is that a euphemism for something else? Or, there's a lot of kind of vague things that we don't know how to interpret. But I think you're right; it's important. But it's kind of a mystery of what that exactly means or what that's getting to. And and one day, as days go by, we understand more and more things. We see more and more of the universe. We learn more and more about our Earth, about our past, about our future. We learn more about where we came from. So having all that stuff there as a solid foundation is good. Yeah. Oh, I was going to tag on about how you're saying like Christianity being under attack. Well, on the flip side of it too, so the way Christianity started and became a world power was Constantine declared the Roman Empire Christian. And basically what they did was before that, they were burning Christians at the stake for their entertainment. And then they started burning pagans at the stake for they're like, wait. Oh, we're Christian now? Oh, okay. That guy over there, he's a pagan. Go burn his ass. And they're like, yeah, burn his ass. Let's burn him.
Catholics and Protestants did the same thing, man. They would crush each other under heavy weights and stuff like that. Oh, you're a Catholic? Well, we're going to stick these heavy weights on your chest so you can't breathe. Really?
Yeah, really? And there's some kind of biblical justification for doing that.
Those are people's justifications. The Bible doesn't justify doing
things like that are pretty crazy. But I think Christianity, so the Christianity that we all got was not the first Christianity that Jesus and his disciples practiced. That philosophy, the meaning kind of sort of got lost as it filtered through the Roman Empire and became their thing. And they sort of, in Whitley Strieber's book about Jesus, he explains that basically Constantine took on Christianity. He saw how the Christian community was very strong socially, and he wanted that for the Roman Empire, but the Romans didn't understand all that. It was like it was a brutal society, and if you could kill your neighbor and take his stuff, you would, because anybody could be killed at any time, but life was so fragile. And so these new ideas about treating people, no matter what status they were in society, with respect and dignity, that it was just like, now they're like, we don't really understand that. But the way they took it was like, okay, so now instead of persecuting people in the name of our other gods, we're going to persecute people in the name of Jesus Christ. And we're going to say, oh, you're a sinner, you're doing this and this, and so you're a sinner, and you're the one that is causing all our misfortune for your sinning. You have displeased Jesus by being a sinner, and the only way to make our society better is to kill you, to eradicate, Jesus. Yeah. So we won't have anybody among us that's a sinner, and once we get rid of all the sinners, then God will smile down upon us and bring us great, bountiful, what you have. But that's the way the justification went, and they turned and used Christianity as a tool to persecute other people, and it becomes that for a lot of people even still today. It's just I'm sure if you're active in the church, you've heard of like church ladies or something, gossip ladies that need to pry into everybody's business and judge others. It becomes a tool to judge others.
That was a thing that happened when I was growing up. I have an aunt that's like that. I was going to, and now by no means am I the best Christian.
Everybody's done things wrong.
But I went to the Fellowship of Christian Students in school, and I went back to my aunt and I was like, "Hey, we've got a Jewish guy in my Fellowship of Christian Students," and immediately the first thing she said to me, "He's going to hell, Bart." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Well," she's like, "All the Jews are going to hell because they don't believe in Jesus Christ." And I'm like, first of all, you don't get to say that anyways. You don't get to decide who does and doesn't go to hell, regardless. Second of all, he's in Fellowship of Christian Students. He's a sanctified Jew who does believe in Jesus Christ. So you're wrong already. She's just that judgmental, judgy Christian woman that's very unchristlike because she's just incredibly accusatory and stuff like that. I don't care if you're in an African tribe who's never learned of Jesus Christ or God as explaining Christianity, and you die, you're not immediately going to hell.
No,
I'm not going to say that because you know why? I don't get to decide that, and I don't believe that that's what happens. But there are plenty of people who do. But that kind of mentality, that kind of thing, has been dying off over the past few decades. I feel like there's not a whole lot of that left, or a whole lot of those people left who are just extremely judgmental and things like that. Like the church that I go to is not like that at all. Nobody there treats anybody that way. And honestly, everybody that goes to the church that I go to is a better person than me. And I really like all the people that were around because they're not like that. Every one of them has more money than me. Every one of them's more successful than me. Probably, I would say maybe not every one of them, but most of them. And you wouldn't know it based off of the way they treat each other and they treat everybody. Nobody does that where we're at, and I feel like that's a good thing. That's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
No way in hell I'm going to tell a 12 or 13-year-old kid that his friend's going to hell because he's a Jew.
That's an awful thing.
She even got mad. She got mad at the Pope one time, and we can cut all this out. I don't care if we cut it out or leave it in. But she got mad at the Pope because some little boy was crying because he was afraid his dad, who died, was going to hell because his dad was not a Christian. He was an atheist, but he sent his kids to a private Catholic school and had them going to church and stuff like that. And the Pope said, he's not, do you really think God's going to send your dad to hell who's doing this? Do you really think he was an atheist? Do you really think he was an atheist? My aunt's like, I can't stand that Pope. He's telling that kid his dad's going to heaven, and there's like a 6 or 7-year-old boy who's probably scorned mother or grandmother told him their dad's going to hell, which is just not true, and who are they to condemn somebody else to hell? You are not the one that gets to condemn somebody to hell. You don't get to say somebody goes to hell. I know a man who went to prison for murder. I don't want to say any names or where he lives, but fine. My next door neighbor went to prison for murder. He had a 30-year sentence. He got out after 15 years into prison. He became a preacher, and the first day I met him, he invited me to his church to watch him preach. And he's a prison minister who travels from prison to prison, ministering to people in prison, and that's what he does. And he's one of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
So I don't get to say that somebody's going to hell because I don't believe it. I don't look at somebody and say, well, you committed murder, you're going to hell. Mm-hmm. No, I don't believe that.
Since we're talking about all this Christianity stuff, I want to talk about another book that I started reading. So there's there's this book that it comes from this group, this psychic group, that claimed to be channeling this alien entity that was somehow related to this galactic federation of planets. Is what he called it, and they're like representing God. Basically, they're all about God because they recognize that God is real and that God basically they treat life with respect, and we're under some sort of like rule by whatever these lizard people or whatever, and they just want us to be more advanced socially. Hold on, I'm gonna get the phone. My wife's calling. I'll cut this out real quick. Yeah, hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Are you still on the video?
Yeah, I am.
Oh my god. Okay. I'll call you back then.
I'll call you when I'm done.
Okay.
All right, bye. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh, the law of one. So the Galactic Federation of Light, of these good aliens, have been with us here for a long time, and they tried to help us at one point, but we were too stupid. We weren't advanced. We were too aggressive. Like if they gave us something, we'd all fight over it and create a caste system where we have, elites ruling over people in poverty and things like that. That's how humans would typically do it, so they didn't really get involved too much. But they said Jesus was real, and that we need to all basically do like exactly what the Bible says or what Jesus says. Like we need to treat each other the same because we are all essentially in their mind all the same entity, because our consciousness comes from this entity that they call God. And so since we're like part of God's consciousness, everyone is special in their own way, and everyone's perspective is important because every person is like a part of God that's trying to learn some new experience. But that's kind of what it says. It's pretty interesting stuff. But I'll stop talking here. And we have more slides to go through.
Yeah. We've gotten deep into it.
Yeah, Kevin Day. I've even just chatted with him on Messenger a little bit, but he's a little out there. Remember, if you hear him talking, he says that he was traumatized by his experience, which Fravor doesn't seem very traumatized. He seems pretty level-headed, but Kevin Day said he was traumatized. I don't know if he was like ostracized by these people. It seems like he was he tried to whistleblow a little bit himself, but he got ostracized and kind of convinced not to, or I guess he did anyways. But I just realized I misspelled radar in the first bullet, but let's please overlook that and move on. He basically just says he saw them on radar. I don't even know if he saw them up close.
So let me just check something real quick. I want to look one thing up before I start talking about it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So here's the way that I look at it, right, with this guy. I have done, I've been on Navy ships. I never served in the Navy on a ship, but I've been the third officer on Navy ships, the Mount Whitney and the Frank Cable. And the Mount Whitney, they had these guys down there that were observing radar, and I've observed radar on every vessel that I've been on. I know how radar works. I also know that you're able to see things on radar that you're not able to see with the naked eye. But you're not seeing, so like if you look at something on radar, the only way to tell what it is, like I can look when I'm in a ship and I'm driving around, I can tell if it's a ship or I can tell if it's an aircraft. That's it. I can see that it's traveling fast if it's a helicopter. Things that travel faster than a helicopter aren't picked up very well. I mean, you're not going to see like a trail on a commercial marine radar. You'll see a trail with a helicopter, but you're not picking up, an aircraft way up high. So their radars are a little different with the Navy. I get it. But what I can tell you it's not going to do is give you a physical outline of the object. So you're not going to see its tic-tac shape as far as I'm aware. It's not going to come back with this perfect view of what this thing looks like moving around. No, it's going to come back as a blip or a dot on a screen, and you're going to see it, and you're going to see how you can tell how fast it goes by using either mathematical calculations, or you can use what's called we have ARPA, Automatic Radar Plotting Aid, on our radars, where I can click on an object and it will tell me the details about how fast it's going, which direction it's going, how close I'm going to come to it, So just seeing that wouldn't traumatize me.
No. So, but let me stop you right there. Maybe I've I heard a long time ago the Navy had a commercial about this, about their super advanced radar, their Aegis system. I think it's called Aegis, Aegis. So this Aegis system all the details are classified, but it's more than just traditional radar. I think there's some kind of a super advanced sensor system, which I don't know if you've ever seen this Aegis system or you know what I'm talking about, but maybe he's seen better and clarity detail than radar. Maybe I get the impression. I don't know, but you're right. Like I don't know how just seeing it on radar would really impact you that much.
That's the way that I look at it. I mean, that's the way that I look at it, right? It'd be interesting, but yeah, how are you traumatized by this? Like, I don't understand it. Is there some other aspect of this that traumatized you? Because you didn't even see it. You know, it's like being in command and control on a battlefield, but you're, 60 miles away. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not being shot at. Nobody's shooting at you. You're not hearing people.
Safe.
You didn't hear anybody die.
No.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing there that I could see that would give me any kind of post-traumatic stress, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I mean, from my perspective, anyways, it doesn't seem like that would be.
It kind of makes me think about. I don't know if you got this far in Alessandro's book, but they said early on when he started, they said, well, this subject tends to follow you home, and it ended up turning out that meant he had a green orb showing up in his house and floating through his hallway. That's what Alessandro said. So maybe this guy had something follow him home, and he experienced something else. But I got his book. I haven't read it yet, so I don't want to speculate too much on this guy because I don't know the full story. I just know he seemed very traumatized by his experience, and he was a radar operator. That's as far as we know on this guy. I didn't dig that deep into him.
I mean, okay, so like from my perspective too, like, and I'm not saying he's making this claim because he hasn't, as far as I know. Let's just say that you catch a UFO on radar. Is that UFO going to know that you observed it on radar, and then it's going to come home with you and start messing with you? I don't know. I have my doubts. So I don't know. I mean, he's been on a lot of shows. He's been interviewed by Ben Hansen. He's been but I mean, he wasn't important enough to go to the congressional hearing, so there's that.
No. He wasn't a first-hand witness for sure, I don't think.
No, I wouldn't consider that. I would just think that he wants to be part of it, and that's the way I look at it.
I don't know if he necessarily wants the attention. So this is my next slide, which we've kind of been asking: should we trust them? Like Elizondo, I think Rush, they're intelligence people. Fravor and the other one, not so much.
Graves, yeah.
I mean, Graves, but they're not making these. Their claims aren't quite as big as Elizondo and Grush's, and so I feel like the more I learn about people in intelligence, I feel like their whole, like, one of the biggest weapons in their toolbox is lying. It's just lying. They're expert liars, and they only tell the truth when it benefits them, and in a way that benefits them. So how do we know that's not what's going on here? And Grush and Elizondo, these people are being honest with us.
Well, two of them have a book out, and I read some of Elizondo's book too. It's a great read. I appreciate it. The crazy thing is he says, what's in his book, he's been cleared to write. It had to go through a process of people looking in it.
Right.
Like, okay, just from the first couple chapters of his book, I could narrow down buildings in certain cities that I think were the ones that he operated out of. I mean, just by reading the descriptions of everything that he said. I mean, that's all there, right there. So you're telling me that if it's real and all that stuff, somebody has decided that that's okay to put that information out. On top of that, they're making a profit on it. And I'm not saying that I don't appreciate him writing a book. I do. I like the book, from what I've read so far and what I've had the opportunity to read, it's easier to read than other UFO books. It's an
really
easy
interesting.
read.
I got really hooked on it when I started reading it.
It's a good book, and
Really
I like it.
Yeah.
But it does not mean that it does add a little more. I'm going to say incredibility and not credibility. Like
Right.
it's more of a, oh wow, okay, But he's also making some money on it too now, so
Good, and that's a good point. I want to tag on that. The green orb thing. Nobody thought to whip out a camera and get a video of this green orb floating through his house. So, again, like you said, he's just making more outrageous claims with no evidence.
Yeah, and then why is that just now coming out in the book about the green orb thing? That's not classified. If something happens in my house, it's not classified. Even when I was in the government.
Orb shows up in your house and starts floating in your hallway, you can tell whoever you damn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can tell whoever you want. And I might be hesitant to tell people about that if I thought they wouldn't take me seriously. But
that's why you take a video of it, dude. Like, why didn't you take a video?
Yeah, something, man. Like, there's people out there who can look at your videos and tell. They can dissect it and say this is real or this is fake. There are people who make a living doing that, So
yeah, I feel like it
take
easily
video by all means.
Or
just take by all means. Go take a video of it, So that's the way I feel, anyways.
We can move on, but we've kind of been talking about these bullet points of what I've been saying with these people about why are they cleared to say this. So at least one's making money off of it. Elizondo. Grush hasn't made a book yet, as far as I know. Skip over important details. They'll tell us things and then say, "Oh, I'm not cleared to say such and such and such and such." So who is clearing these? Like, who's the puppet master standing over you, telling you what bits of information you can talk about, what you can't, and why? Why are they deciding this now, that it's okay to let these people talk about this in Congress and in public? Why didn't they get executed by the Men in Black or something for trying this? I don't know. All interesting questions that I think need to be thought of before if you're just see Grush's claims and want to know what you should think. Oh, here's one that I skipped over, but this is another thing that I said. Well, Elizondo said the threat narrative. This is what kind of comes from Greer. Mostly the person I've heard say this is that these aliens aren't really a threat, but the people in charge of the program are going to sell them to us as a threat so that we can fund a fake war. Which you brought up an interesting point. So if they're going to have a fake war with UFOs, you're going to have a war where we're funding both sides of the war and they're just all killing each other and we're just keep putting money. And that seems insane to me. But
let me give you my real thought on this. Right, this is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. Right, when somebody comes out and says, "Okay, well, it looks to me like they're planning, a war and they're getting intelligence for a battlefield." That's stupid, first of all, because they've been here since at least the Roman times talking about, flaming shields flying through the air. That's at a minimum that we know of. That people have been spotting things that are anomalous flying around in the air. So they've definitely been around since World War II. You would think. We've seen advanced. We have nuclear capability, but in the grand scheme of things, that's all we've got. You know what I'm saying? If David Fravor, one of the best pilots that the United States has, and probably one of the best in the world, cannot compete with a tic-tac shaped 40-foot object, over the ocean, they don't have anything to worry about if they want, if they want to attack us. So making the claim that they're trying to plan some kind of attack is silly. It's not just silly, it's stupid, and it's supposed to get people riled up. That's another thing too. So we don't have to. Nobody has to get us thinking that they're going to attack us to get us to throw money at it. You want to know the truth? If they want us to throw money at this thing, all they have to do is disclose it. Give us some stuff. You know, how do you get funding for NASA? Get people interested. You know, it's the same thing with this stuff. As soon as this guy came out, you've got UFO podcasts, you've got UFO channels that people on YouTube that weren't talking about UFOs are now into it, and they're into conspiracies and all this other stuff. And what's crazy is that you started this right before all this stuff happened.
Yeah,
so
to that point, I was going to say that exactly. I want to congratulate us for being aware of this topic before everyone else does. Because
and that's what's crazy.
When I started seriously reading about this stuff, I was prepared to be filed away in the loony bin with everybody. Everybody thinks, even my wife thinks it's crazy. Nobody around me takes any of this stuff seriously, and if I say anything about it, they're like, "You're that sounds crazy, nuttish." And some things I will say too, one of the things I've been saying to my wife lately is a lot of the foods that, especially the processed foods we buy, have a lot of bad stuff in them, and we should really reconsider about buying any processed foods. I feel like, and it's not a conspiracy. I just think the FDA that they don't ban things until there's a lawsuit, or until there's clear evidence over a long time that some things do cause cancer that they weren't aware of. And
it's more expensive for you to eat an heirloom tomato grown in regular dirt than it is for you to eat something that's been processed and use pesticides and all that stuff. It's easier for food manufacturers to be able to sell their products because of that, to add all these additives and all this other stuff. It's the same way that government operate. Government has one goal that is above all else, and that is to justify the need for government. All these politicians are very good at justifying the need for their jobs. Bureaucrats are the worst because they're not elected officials. They're hired by the government to do a job, and they have to justify why they're getting a paycheck. Same thing with FDA, same thing with everything else. And when you look at, from the UFO topic and perspective and stuff, the least amount of information they can give us to get the most amount of money out of us for it is probably part of their goal. So this thing that Greer is pushing with them wanting to make an attack or all that stuff, that is, it's hyped up. It's meant to get you riled up. It's meant to get you interested in the topic. It's kind of like feuds between political parties and all these other things that we've all fallen victim to. I fall victim to it all the time. It's there to get you into it. Same thing with the UFO topic too. Could be exactly what you're talking about. They want funding. They need money for this stuff. That's exactly what they're doing. They're justifying their need to be there. And, you look at it from that perspective. I mean, Ryan Graves does a great job of justifying a need for this because it's a threat to pilot safety and people on commercial airlines. You have a crash and you lose 200 people in an airline. That's a pretty big deal, So there does need to be some focus on it, but I don't think they could sit around and say that it's a threat to our national security, sure, but they can't sit around and say that we're worried about going to war with these things unless they start a war. I don't think that that's possible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's on my slides. We touched on. I think we hit on all the big things that I wanted to talk about. All our modern era whistleblowers that came out not too long after I started this channel. I already heard about the Tic Tac. That was already news. So that's why I got interested and took it more seriously. But early on, I didn't take it seriously at all. I thought, so if somebody saw all my videos, I do say early on that when I was a kid, I did feel like I was experiencing aliens coming in my bedroom and things like that. And I did see some weird things. Yeah, I was super obsessed with it when I was a kid. But as an adult, when I grew up, I learned that, it'd be highly improbable that there would be an alien that looks like the traditional grays. Like, it wouldn't evolve that way. It would look something totally different. So I became convinced that was all just conspiracy theory, mythos stuff, that it wasn't real. It was all just a fabricated story. But as I started reading more and more stuff, I started taking it more seriously and started to believe it was real, I guess. I forget the part of what I was saying, but
No, yeah,
it took me
no,
a while to digest it, I guess. Take it more.
yeah, but that's the thing is you're being discerning. You're discerning, about it. But and that's the thing. That's the way most people are. They're going to be more discerning. That's why a gigantic government conspiracy is not going to work that well. Most people have better discernment about what's going on.
That's a big question. I feel like that we needed to get to, and I think you touched on that earlier. It's like, just how big of a conspiracy is there? How big, to hide something like this that's so sensational for so long? I think by that logic, there must be some sort of apparatus to keep the secrecy. There must be some sort of control, like somebody at the top must have control over all of our information, maybe through our news or something. And that would be a good place to go if you were trying to look to blow the lid on something. Find one of these people who's doing that, or where they're doing it, or how.
I'll give you my honest opinion real quick. And this is my opinion, and I think there's enough to support it. I've always said this, and I'll always say it. I don't think there's any Illuminati. I don't think that there's any that we don't know of. I don't think that there's any one person up there that's able to control this stuff, that's smart enough to keep it all under wraps, that's smart enough to come up with a conspiracy that's going to work on everybody, and that's so great at psychology that they're going to be able to get over on the American people in such a way, that's going to be effective and efficient, and with all the secret.
Too. So they started with the Nazi propagandist. I can't remember his name, but I remember I mentioned him to you one time. The Nazi propagandist. He was the one that started the secrecy. He figured out if you just ridicule it and get people to think if you even are interested in it that you're ridiculous, people will peer pressure each other into hiding the secrecy. And they'll hide it themselves.
Yeah, the problem with that is that whenever it comes time for them to have to blow the lid off of it, and everybody finds out they've been doing that on purpose, which we already know, it's not going to benefit them in any way, because there's a lot of people out there who really buy into it, so they really buy into the fact that UFOs are hokey and that we shouldn't be talking about them because they're not real. There's plenty of people out there who are like that. Almost everybody I talk to is like that, and from that perspective, it's very detrimental to the government in that regard, because they could justify their need to exist based off of just letting us believe that UFOs and aliens are real and that we have a threat. You know what I'm saying? But they haven't. They've made sure to go out of their way to make it not a thing, which is by itself suspicious, anyways. But from my perspective, there's nobody up there controlling it, and that really lends itself to some truth, because when you think about what the biggest problem is right now with the government and the UFOs, is that the government, not Congress, the Congress has no oversight, which means the American people have no oversight, no say on where their money goes or why their money's going to these programs. There's just money in the budget disappearing into these programs, and nobody has any idea what's going on with it. No one can get an answer out of anybody. Nobody. The only people that need technically the people that the government, any part of the government, is required to answer to is Congress. And the reason for that is Congress is the first part of government we had. Before we had a president, we had a Congress. Before we had the Supreme Courts, we had Congress. Congress is the only people that we really vote on. The Electoral College votes on the president. I mean, we cast our votes, and they're supposed to do their job properly. But at the end of the day, our representatives in Congress are the most important people in the government. So they need to have oversight into it. Now, I'm not saying every single congressperson needs to be privy to every single piece of classified information, but we do need to have representatives in there that are, privy to what's going on here to a degree, and if there are, and the other thing is when you're not accountable to Congress, you're not accountable to the American people. So we got, these programs are so secretive that no one knows about them. Like somehow or another, they keep themselves, separate in special access programs and things like that, and parts of private corporations which the government owns, like In-Q-Tel. You've got these places that's public information, by the way. So the government owns these private corporations which are part of special access programs. And they're no longer accountable to the government the same way that the rest of the government is. If you have a program in the government, they're accountable to somebody. Well, if you have Bob's Computer Shack, he's not really accountable to tell Congress anything. He's a private entity, and he doesn't have to tell Congress anything. So if he's working on something that the government says is classified, he doesn't have to provide anything. Someone else has got to provide that information, but he don't have to tell you anything. Bob's Computer Shack doesn't have to say jack shit. Yeah. So that adds a whole nother level of legal protection to what's going on, and secrecy to it too, because there's no law requiring him to say anything.
FOIA for them.
No, and that's the problem. And it's not. It doesn't have to be a problem. Like it can be very useful. It could be a very useful thing, but it's also detrimental too, because it keeps us from getting access to the things we want. So Congress needs to be holding back that black budget money. They need to be saying, no, you're not getting this. Yeah. You're not getting this. So you come forward. We don't have to approve this to you. We're already in a humongous deficit. We need to be paying back people's Social Security money that we've been taking out for this deficit. Y'all aren't worth it. You've given us no reason to assume that this is valuable to spend our money on. There's no reason for us to give you this money, and they need to come up with a reason for them too. And a fake alien invasion is not going to work. Mm-hmm. So I have to take a break and use the restroom. I'll be right back. So just to make sure that we're all aware of what's going on, I have this. It's Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos Skyscraper Assault.
Okay.
A children's book.
That looks good.
I intended to read it to my daughter's class. I don't know if that's going to fly to read to second graders at a Christian school, but
yeah. Yeah, they're weird about like violence and that kind of thing.
I don't know. And it is Chuck Norris. Nobody dies. It's about Chuck Norris against a guy named Super Ninja. So, I mean, don't get any better than that.
Yeah. I mean, I saw all kinds of stuff when I was growing up. I didn't.
Chuck Norris, Karate Commandos.
I feel like it's no worse than Power Rangers, right?
Yeah, Power Rangers is probably as violent as Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos. Either way, though, man, I don't know. I feel like we've had this is a really long video, but the truth is, man, we covered a lot of shit.
No, we covered a lot of ground, and I think we touched on a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. And I think you kind of brought up an interesting question of we need to decipher just how big is the conspiracy. If they've really been hiding UFOs and humanoid aliens and biologics or what have you, then they must have had some we know for a fact they must have had some disinformation campaign. We just don't know how powerful that was and what exactly they did. And so I think it's another thing I would like to explore is just how the disinformation campaign worked, and why are they not? Did they just stop? The disinformation office was spending too much money, so they're like, we can't do this no more. So we're just gonna tell the truth, but we're gonna tell the truth and we're gonna put a spin on it.
They haven't had to have disinformation for a long time. Let me go ahead and just break this down, and then we could do a whole video on this. But I'll tell you how big the conspiracy operation is. It's as big as Cone Blue. That's it. So, think about it for a second. Grush has said it, and one of the best all-time greats, Bob Lazar, said it as well. They have 7 craft, something like that. That's what they say, what they claim, what has been claimed.
No, Grush said they have almost 50.
It's not what I remember hearing his claim before, so there must be new information out there.
Yeah,
if they have almost 50, then that's ridiculous. When we're talking about something
48
huge,
or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but that would mean it's an enormous conspiracy theory or enormous conspiracy going on. But if they only have 6 or 7 or 10, and you say, okay, all right, you got 10 of them, we'll say 3 bodies per craft. You're looking at 30 bodies, but you're probably not getting that many, right? So let's just cut that down to 15, and that's a big number. That's a lot more than I was thinking. I was thinking 4 or 5 for 7 craft.
One of them could be alive, and then you have to figure out what to do with that live one.
Maybe it's going to die, but if you look at it from that perspective, right? You've only got I don't know. Let's say a handful of bodies, 10 total. All right, how many bodies are going to fit in? Walk in the gas station, you see a Coca-Cola freezer, right? I went into Texas A&M, and I saw basically what looks like the frozen food section. It's just a cooler of animal parts, okay, all up and down a wall. If that's the only thing you have to hide, it ain't that damn hard. If you've only got to hide 6 or 7 vehicles, it's not that hard. You don't need 300, 400 people in the government all conspiring, and that's something else people need to take into consideration too. These people who believe these just gigantic, outlandish conspiracies are ridiculous. So, the NSA monitoring civilians, right? Monitoring us. Sure, it happens.
They do that. We know. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not able to take every bit of data from every single person and know every single little thing about everybody. There's not enough people. There's not enough resources to be able to do that.
I could.
Probably now, but that's a new thing. That's pretty new, last 5 years
I
maximum.
Could probably take if AI could tell your mood. I saw an AI one time that it displayed how they do it on inside the browser, and it would guess your mood by how you were moving the mouse. Like if you were moving the mouse too aggressively or such, I don't know, it could guess what mood you were in just by how fast you're clicking, how are you moving your mouse. So it would have that information and much, much more. It could probably get you figured out pretty good.
Maybe, but you sit around and think about that for a minute, though. The amount of computing power it would take. The government's relatively small compared to the amount of citizens and non-citizens in the United States, even just citizens. Let's use a round number of 350 million people, right? The government's not that damn big. You'd have to have basically one person for every 3 or 4 to be able to monitor everybody. You would just look at it from this perspective, though. I'm just saying, if you've got, even with 50 craft, you're pushing it. When you start collecting that many damn craft, you're pushing it with the amount of manpower you're going to have to monitor, keep secret, all that kind of stuff. If you've got a couple hundred people trying to keep the secret, that's going to be hard. If you've got a couple dozen people trying to keep the secret, it gets much easier. And if you've only got about 15 people total, maybe 20 max, that's about how big this is going to be, because you start looking at how many people management is a big part of leadership. You have to manage all these people.
If I was in charge of the program and say, yeah, we have all these crafts and we need to hire hundreds of people, I think out of 100 people, if you tell them all not to talk, one of them's going to talk at least. Out of 100 people, even if you tell them, we'll send you to jail.
Like 45
Whatever.
or 55 of them are going to talk. I'd say closer to like 65% of them are going to talk. Minimum. So the more people you introduce, the more chances of failure you have, and that's what compartmentalization is all about too. So when they do talk, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They only have part of the puzzle, and you can discredit them. But as far as the people who are actually in the know, completely in the know, it's going to be less than 15, maybe 10, maybe less than 10. So and they may not know everything.
Majestic 12.
Yeah, that's really, when you think about it, that's manageable. But it's actually not that manageable, with the kind of secrecy and that's required. So then you start, sending this stuff off to these aerospace companies and things like that. Then they have to manage people who may be in charge of these things, and they have to come up with ways to compartmentalize stuff. You can't just say, okay, I need you to work on this part of a undisclosed project. You've got to come up with some things more than that to explain what they're doing to keep them on their toes, or to keep them off of the track of figuring what it is. It's none of it's going to be easy. Keeping it secret is super hard, and that may be part of the reason for disinformation. The other part of disinformation is because when it originally started, we had just gotten out of 2 world wars, and people didn't want to spook the public. We just got out of World War II, and now you're telling me we've got objects flying around over our airspace that we have no control over.
I see that first 10 years of them keeping it secret, you could kind of justify all the years after. They should have said something by now. Yeah,
maybe even 20 years. I think by the 70s, they should have already had this out into the public, because here's another thing. I'm going to make a critical statement here about all of it that's been going on, and I'm going to upset some people if anybody watches this video this far. And I'll say it again in another one. They're hiring the wrong people to look at this stuff. If they haven't reverse engineered anything, it's because they've hired nothing but physicists. And I'm going to tell you the truth, right? I'm not going to hire an engineer to fix my car. I'm not going to hire a physicist, to fix my UFO. They can sit around and look at it all day. They can theorize on how it works. They can come up with theories, and they come up with scientific ways things happen. But they're not turning nuts and bolts. You know what I mean? That's just plain and simple. You're a theoretical scientist, really. And you can put that theory into practice, and they do all the time. But they're not the guys. They're not the ones that are going to do it. Whoever they've had in charge of it is obviously doing a bad job, because you know as well as I do that if the U.S. had 50 craft and they knew how they worked and all that other stuff, we would already be dominating everything. That's just what we do. We win. There would never be a threat that we can't take care of. The only reason there would be a threat we can't take care of is because we want funding, just like you said. But realistically, we would already have dominated the world, in my opinion.
Well, the conspiracy mythos says that America will essentially be kind of eradicated, and we'll be moving to a new world order, one world government. And so that would be the motivation for whoever's running the program. In theory, is they're going to say screw America. We don't care about Americans. We're gonna put them through as much hell as we can until they submit to a one world government. That's kind of the conspiracy mythos about this. And that's I call it conspiracy mythos because it's just kind of the ideas that have been floating around about NWO and Illuminati stuff, and which everybody kind of knows about. It's no
World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. Why buy a house when you can rent?
The state
you don't have to take on all that responsibility. Yeah.
And another thing too is they say they're trying to tear families apart. They're trying to
that's 100%
destroy the American family and destroy family connections and bonds and tightness. I notice it too. It's like when your kids are growing up, they're going to be looking at all they as soon as they start early too, and I see this, they're like, oh, this kid has a iPhone 18 or whatever. Well, oh yeah, well I have an iPhone 19. Oh yeah, well I watch Apple T, and like they get really just kind of too obsessed with who has what, and that's the American way, I guess, is to look at your neighbor and say he has this, he's living the American dream better than me, he's making more. So I need to make more. I need to hustle more. And so
that's fine, in my opinion. It's fine to be ambitious. It's not fine to covet what your neighbor has to the point where you take their stuff.
No, yeah, it's fine to be ambitious, but I guess it just keeps you ignoring what's important. What's important when you're growing up is your parents and your family, and it distracts you towards thinking that I need to live a lifestyle where I can have that stuff.
Or I have to go to college. That's the big lie that was sold to a lot of people. Like,
yeah,
I have to go to college.
The joke.
Women go to college on average more than men. They do better in college. They do better in school on average more than men anyways. A lot of younger learning, like elementary school and stuff like that, it's all taught by women. So the learning style is better for women than it is for men and for boys. It's just the way that it is. We need more breaks and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they don't try. I respect teachers for trying. But on the opposite hand, it's kind of like that. But you sit here and you sell this lie that these women need to go out and get these jobs and all that stuff. Well, they become a second taxpayer. Why do you think I need a 2-parent household to be able to afford the lifestyle that I live? It's because we've been sold this idea that they need to go work, and then they go work, and once we're able to make a 30-year mortgage,
don't be oppressed. Go get a job. Don't be oppressed by the men oppressors. Go get a job.
And they're unhappy. They're
paid as much as the men do. Yeah.
You never see a woman coming home from work super happy. I mean, with some of them.
I'm empowered today. I went to work.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is I wish my wife could stay home. Do you know how much happier my family would be? We would be so much happier, and we'd be doing really well if things were that way, because she could stay home and just make everything perfect. Like, the house would be fine. The kids would be good. All the things would be taken care of that we need to take care of. We wouldn't have to do it on our off time. But they're getting that tax money, and these people are charging 30-year mortgage on a house. Used to, you could get married and live with your parents for 2 years and save up and buy a house in cash. Just save all your money and move out. Buy a house in cash.
But we've been told like that's culturally unacceptable. Like, look how the Mexicans live. Look how they live there. People that are straight off the border, they'll cram themselves like 10. They'll put their grandparents and their cousins and everybody's in there, packed in there. They don't care. It's not. They don't think about, oh, well, my family can't afford a house to give me my own room, so I'm poor or something. Which, I mean, that's kind of where we're at with my house. It's too small for all of us eventually. But we don't care. That's a cultural thing. Like, look how people in East Timor live. They didn't have all that cultural need to say I watched.
Yeah. But you look at it from this perspective too, though. It's also, that's a good thing, but forward progress, like we're doing. Like, I have a house that's big enough for us for the next 30 years. We're good. I got a good deal. We're good. I could live here for the rest of my life, and I'm happy with that. I'd be happier if my wife didn't have to work and I made more money. Of course I would. All that you get that lifestyle, and it's good. It's good to have that lifestyle, but I'll tell you what the least acceptable thing to society is right now, and a lot of people don't notice it because they're stupid, but you're dumb if you don't see this, because I don't mean to just call people stupid, but you really are missing something here. When you go online to buy something and it says finance this with Klarna or with whatever pay or whatever it is, 4 easy payments of
I know what you're talking about.
$7 for a $100 item. Don't do that, because when you do that and you finance the item out, not only are you paying more for it with interest or interest repayments, what you're doing is you're allowing them to charge a higher price because you're willing to make payments on it. So now you've got 4 monthly payments of something for an item, which is great if you're trying to buy like a gigantic table for a room, you know, so you play your board games.
Sure,
on.
yeah. If you want to finance a fridge or
you could pay yourself that 4 times and then just go buy it in cash. But when you start financing this stuff out, the issue is that you run into is that they can charge a higher price because it doesn't matter what the price is as long as you can afford to pay it. And you can afford to pay it for 4 or 5, 6 months or more, then you're good. It's the same thing with our mortgages being 30 years long. You know, like you can get a 15-year mortgage, but you can't necessarily afford to pay. You can't always afford to pay that gigantic tag all the way through. You can pay a house off with cash, but there's no way you're going to sit at your parents' house for 3 years and save up $300,000 to buy a house. It's just not going to happen. You'd have to sit there for 10 years and save $30,000 a year just to be able to buy a $300,000 house, you know, or you can just finance it out for 30 years. So, but that's where we've drug women into the workforce, and is what it is, you know?
Yeah. It's part of the plan to destroy the family.
Exactly. I do got to get off here soon, though.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we've been talking for a long time. I got to go check on my kids and everything. Yeah. So I had a good time.
Yeah, but you got plenty of content for this one to edit out.
This will be a long video for, if anybody watches this all the way through, bravo, congratulations on you. You are a real UFOer in the knower.
Do a part 1 and a part 2. You can do that too.
That's a good idea. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just split it in the middle.
Right. That's probably best.
Yeah.
With that, I will bid our viewers, any viewers that happen to be left and watching this, goodbye. We had a good time. Thank you for listening. And,
yeah.
I'm going to stop recording here.